Okay, so this is the lesson plan demo for me, Charles Peters. Nice to meet you. I'm starting here on the screen by going to, and I've used Screencast-O-Matic once, maybe a couple years ago in my undergrad. So bear with me as I work through this. But if you go to my file under Peters in the Project C lesson plan demo under the H, I think it was Unit H. When you click on it, you'll see my lesson plan, idea, and format. You'll see a rubric, and you'll also see an exemplar that I created for the lesson. So if we look at the lesson plan first, I want to just briefly go over this as the foundation for the idea. My classes are about 55 minutes, so I designed this based on a 55-minute period, not so much a block. I'm thinking about doing this in my Unit 1 short story boot camp. We start the students off by reading Miss America. This is ninth grade, so Miss America by Julia Alvarez and Sweat by Zora Neale Hurston. Those are the first two short stories. So if we take Miss America by Julia Alvarez and we take that text and form some type of digital multi-modal composition from the reading. Now, the skills and the standards that we're addressing in Unit 1 are the basic foundation of literature analysis. So characterization, theme, tone, mood, those types of things. The feedback that I received on my lesson plan idea was that if I focused on characterization, mood, and tone and theme, it might be too much this early in the school year. So I'm deciding just to focus in on characterization and letting that be the device that we actually built this whole digital multimodal composition around. So in my overview, I kind of explain after reading and annotating Miss America, the students will make an IG post and tag the classroom Instagram page. So last year I created an Instagram page for my English class, my ninth grade English class, and I would use it primarily to highlight great student work, maybe to post exemplars so that when students got home and they were doing their homework, they could still look back at what we did in class, either exemplars that students made or exemplars that I had prepared for the class. I also used it to post interesting and impactful news coverage, things that were going on in the news. The whole Kanye West, Donald Trump debacle that was so polarizing. I posted something about that, and the students commented on that, gave their opinions on that. We were able to use that content in class the next day when we were doing our Do Now and moving through different ideas about power and influence and things like that. So it's a different way for me to take up student understandings. I'm learning in my research and some other things that I'm into that's called uptake. So my Instagram page was kind of used as a way to download information to my students, but also to uptake their opinions and understandings and confusions and misconceptions. So I'm expanding on that idea and having my students create an IG post from their IG page. They would tag the classroom IG, which is Mr. Peters _ELA, so that I could see it, find it, be identified. And what they would have to do is, if you notice here, they would address the key literary devices from the unit, characterization, mood, tone. Again, I'm modifying this to just be one literary device, which would be characterization. So I'm going to go back and edit this form and make sure it only says characterization. So then the post would have to have a picture of some modern cultural touchstone that is applicable to the text. The post would need to be tagged with the name of the story, Miss America, the author, Julia Alvarez, and the literary device characterization. They would have to explain how the device served to progress the narrative and establish theme. Of course, before they can get to this, we would have done some brief lecturing and practice, student practice, independent work, group work on characterization, on theme, and how those two relate to each other. So this would be their chance to actually show and prove that they understand how these things connect. They'll need to explain why and how the picture connects. For example, if a student characterizes the main character as insecure, perhaps a post they make on IG would have a picture of an ad from the HBO show Insecure. They need to hashtag and identify the text and give an explanation of how the character being insecure helped the author make their message or lesson clear, and then show how the Insecure HBO show connects to the text or device. And I'll get more into that when we get to the exemplar. The objective here, students will be able to identify and analyze an author's use of characterization to establish theme and create a digital multimodal composition to mediate their argument. There are my standards: vocabulary. We will start the class with a silent solo activity where students will be given a short worksheet. I'll present some very simple sentences or scenarios, and they would use what we would have already established as a tool to characterize, which is called STILL. The acronym stands for what the character says, thinks, their effect on others, actions, and looks. So they'll use that to characterize. I just want to make sure that that's solid before we go into the activity for the day. So they'll have about 5 minutes to kind of review and show that they're display their mastery of that skill. Then they'll conclude the activity by writing their own definition of what the theme is at the bottom of the worksheet. We should be seeing message, lesson, moral of story is what they should be giving me. The agenda is there. The essential question that we will build around that day is in a circle group discussion. They'll critique what message might the author of I Want to Be Miss America aim to convey about beauty. So my classes, or at least the way I've been moving the last 2 years, is heavy group discussion, heavy dialogue, heavy discourse, focus on authentic questioning, allowing students to come up with, or at least pulling from the students' conversation where we'll go next in the conversation. So that's what we'll try to do with this too. Even though the end result will be a project that I know how it should look, I know what the rubric will say, I do want to have an authentic conversation about what Julia Alvarez is saying about beauty. The claim and evidence. After the group discussion, students will compose an assertion claiming a characterization of the main character and a theme of the text. So they'll go back and forth questioning each other, enlightening each other on what they think the theme is based on evidence. They'll have to provide evidence. They'll be able to have some time, about 10 minutes, to write down a claim about how they would characterize the main character and what theme Julia Alvarez is trying to get across. They need to have that written in some rough draft form. Doesn't have to be formal, but they need to have that so that when they get to the IG post, it's just a matter of them working through the digital formatting and requirements, not so much thinking of the analysis, and that should have already taken place. Let's see, if I move down to digital multimodal composition, I will explain in the same way that Dr. Moran explained to us how the multimodal requirement is set up, or why it's set up the way it is, what points they'll get. Student practice, they have about 10 minutes to rough draft and create their first version of the digital multimodal composition. If a student does not have Instagram, then I will allow them to find a picture, create a Google Doc, and create a post underneath that picture and share it with me. That's in the case that they don't have either a phone or a phone with IG. My criteria for success: a successful DMC would be tagged with the name of the story, author, and literary device, and an explanation of how that device served to progress the narrative and establish a theme. It will also explain why and how the picture connects to the student's claim. Before they go, the exit ticket will be to peer review at least one classmate's DMC and offer feedback. Homework will be to use that feedback to improve the DMC so that tomorrow or that night they can submit their final Instagram post. I will say some extensions that I would like to include in this would be, as some of my peers have pointed out, perhaps once they have a picture, taking the picture that they provide, uptake that information, and then do a critique of what the photographer or what the artist did to show positions of dominance or get across their message in the same way that Julia Alvarez got across her message. The exemplar is there. There's a picture from the HBO show Insecure. I have my tags, and I have an explanation of the characterization of the main character being insecure, how this applies to the theme that beauty, changing identity, experimenting with identity is good as long as there's some internal joy and satisfaction. We should all be happy with ourselves. And there's the tags. And I also provided the rubric. I'm about at my 10-minute mark, so I won't continue to bore you with this, but there will be a rubric very similar to the ones that Dr. Moran provides for us. But there's a task goal, and then there's a criteria for how to get all of your points. All right, thank you.